Hello, my name is Frody and welcome to the introductory video to my Road to the OCR Olympics video series. My goal of this series is to kind of create a training log of the journey of my way to actually competing in the Olympics in obstacle course racing. I do this because I believe that there are a lot of valuable insights from top performers training, especially those who have actually won the Olympics in running, in cycling, in whatever sport, but they haven't really created a detailed scheme of their training programs. And by learning the mindsets and the principles and the training philosophy that I am using, and which will hopefully lead me towards the Olympics in this new and exciting sport, OCR, I think there are a lot of things that people can glean from these insights, and it would be very cool if I actually go on to achieve my goal. So I believe this will bring a lot of inspiration in your daily training for whatever sport you're training towards, and that you can learn some of the basic training philosophies which can help you run or move faster, longer, without any injuries, or as few injuries as possible. So now I'll just give you a quick overview of my physical condition at this time and historically, by looking at some of the training data that I have in my Polar Flow app and my Strava running profile. I use Polar Flow to sync my watch with all of my training, watching my heart rate data, comparing it to my speed, and always looking for the slight improvements I can make and listening to what each training session is telling me and what the big picture is telling me when I look at the training throughout the year. And the Strava I use more like a social motivational tool because I can look at people I know, the training that they have in this activity feed with all of them. Not going to show it because it's some of the people I know and I don't know if they want to be here. And yeah, I can see the estimated best efforts on 5K trial, 10K trial, half marathon, marathon. These are not very accurate because they're not based on actual times. They're just estimated based on a certain workout. So if I run 12 kilometers in a certain speed, it will estimate my best time. So we can actually start with some specifics, looking at the 10K estimated time. I actually had this race in Bodø, where I was living in Norway, in the north, in the Arctic Circle, and I ran a 10-kilometer trial there outside, and I got a kilometer time of 3:43. And that's like kind of good. When you get below 4 minutes, you start becoming really good at running, and it takes like a new level of running. And this was back in August 2019. We're now in September 2020. So this was one of the high points. My actual best 10-kilometer time is about 33 minutes 53 seconds. I did that on a treadmill, so that's best to compare performances over time and not to make it an accurate assessment of how fast you can actually run outside. Another thing I'm really proud of is the 50-kilometer ultramarathon I ran all by myself. This was done on a Sunday in January 26th this year. I had prepared myself over months of training to run longer distances. And remember that this was the time when there was a lot of snow outside and about 5 degrees below zero. So it really took a lot, except for the actual, in addition to the actual distance, to complete this race. There was a lot of wind and a lot of snow this day. And I also ran on the top of a mountain up here. You can see my route here in this GPS, which is a really cool thing about Strava. It shows you where you were actually running. And I ran up here to this lake and up to a mountain about 400 to 500 meters high, and then continued on to complete my ultramarathon, going back and forth a few times where it was a little bit more flat. You can see the elevation here. So not only did I complete an ultramarathon of 50 kilometers, but also ascended a mountain during that time. So I'm quite happy about that one, and look forward to running many more ultramarathons in the future. So this kind of just shows how quickly you can improve. Every 3 weeks or so, I added 5 kilometers to my long run. So 1 week I would do 25 kilometers, 3 weeks later 30, 3 weeks later 35, and eventually I was up at 50. Took 5 hours to complete with a kilometer pace of 6:16 per kilometer, which is alright. Anything else? Yeah, you can also see the pace for every single kilometer and the elevation here in the overview. Yeah, and there are just a lot of other valuable things you can glean from looking at Strava. Also, how many kilometers you run each week. I plan on coming up to about 120 within a few months, because I believe that it will improve my performance based on reading about it in Lore of Running by Tim Noakes. I think it was Tim Noakes, his name. Yeah, anyway. And in Strava here you can see, just add a few comments for each run you had. Yesterday I actually had a long run to a ski cabin here in my hometown called Verdal. And yeah, I got some good scores. Like, you have these segments in Strava where you can see where people are running. For example, you have a short segment of a small climb, like here, for example, 1 kilometer. And you can compare to everyone who uses Strava and what times they had. So you can become the fastest person or not. And I wasn't really trying to be fast here because it was a slow run. And I ran 25 kilometers, 2 hours 20 minutes, and a pretty good pace there. It was quite rainy. It was raining all the time, so it was quite cold because I don't have waterproof clothing yet. And it was about 9 degrees Celsius. But in Norway we learned to handle the cold pretty well. You can see the pace for each kilometer, and you can see I have some recovery periods in between, adding a lot of miles, injury prevention through mobility exercises, stretching and such. I run and but this is something that goes into my training philosophy also. You should not try to improve too fast, because you have something called cardio load, like how much stress is being put on your body, and you should try to always be in the productive zone, whereas like 1.2, 1.3 doesn't really matter, but always stay there and not go too high. And I kind of did yesterday. I overreached a little bit because I ran so far. So now I'm having no running today, because it would still get me higher on this overtraining scale, which often leads to injuries in the knees or the ankles or any other muscles. And tomorrow I can train again or run, leaving it to be safe. And I've also seen that during following the periods of overtraining, of doing too much in too little time, I have often gotten injuries. So if you look back at March, we can eventually see here that I trained way too much. I increased my training load way too much during each week. So it started like from the early March, was always in the big overtraining scheme. And I did notice during this time that my knees and my ankle were hurting too much. And here towards the end of March, I had not really recovered properly. Before in early April, I had a very fast run, too fast, which led to an injury. And where I stopped training completely, almost, because I couldn't run on the ankle. Then I started coming back up again, and I'm now in a good place. Another thing that's really exciting is that the running index, how economically you are running, or how little oxygen it takes to be at a certain speed. You have probably heard about the VO2 max, how much oxygen your body can consume in a given time. And you'll learn that the higher it is, the more chances you have of running quickly or becoming a great athlete. What people usually don't tell you, however, is that if you can take in a lot of oxygen but not use it efficiently, meaning you don't strain muscles that you actually don't need and use too much force, having too long strides in running, thereby wasting oxygen, that advantage of having a big VO2 max doesn't really matter. Because it's been shown a lot of times that Olympic winners might have 85 VO2 max, but someone with a VO2 max of 70 are 20 minutes or like 10 minutes faster on the marathon than those with a VO2 max of 85. So the goal is really to become more and more efficient during the runs, and I'd like to show you my improvement over the year. From September 2019 to September 2020. So here you can see it went like down and down and up and up and up towards where I ran 50 kilometers, was at my peak performance. Here it went down a bit, and I tried to force it up after a small, and I needed a lot of recovery after that for 50 kilometers. So it went down, I wanted to get it up, but then got an injury around the end of March and it went down again. So now just continually since April tried to get it up again to run more efficiently. So it's all on the way up, and it's getting really exciting these days because I get it up to close to an elite level, as you can see here. This means you're very good at being efficient when running, using less oxygen to run faster, and by using shorter strides and really not lifting my knees too much, only focusing on pushing down and pushing forward instead of jumping upwards and wasting force like that. I'm trying to get into the elite level of oxygen consumption. Because as I mentioned, my goal is to become the world's best obstacle course racer, which is a not very modest goal, but it's where I want to go. So throughout the months and the years, I'd like to show you my journey of how I'm progressing in my own training, and I hope you can gain some motivation and some insights for how to improve your own training through these training logs and these training updates. Because this is a very exciting sport. Nobody has really found out how to become the world's best at it. There is not a proven way from A to B there, like it often is in playing a violin or playing chess or other things like that, which have been tested so much. This is really such a new sport that the possibilities are endless. I like to show you my training approach and how I improve over the years, and then you can see what fits your own training and your own goals. Alright, I hope you'll continue looking at this series, and this is just an introduction, so I hope you'll enjoy my series going forward. Thanks for watching.